everyone's number gets called up at some point. I don't know if it's like for like the limelight or just, he's like, just be patient and just keep doing your thing. And the only thing separating you from, name any massive, artist or DJ or producer, or anyone that you look up to, the only thing separating you from them is time.
Hey, Rhiannon, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Just living the dream here in San Diego.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you? You were catch me up. What's been going on?
Oh man. I mean,
A lot.
so much. I mean, I guess in the last year, everyone's kind of like, well, I went to the fridge and then
Yeah, I hear you.
But I feel like I've had a lot more than that going on, though I have spent the majority of my time at home. But these days, I mean, like this is a perfect example. If you have internet and a laptop with a camera, there's so much you can be doing and creating,
100%, yeah. You still producing? You got any stuff going on in the music world right now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've got a lot of projects on the go. It's intense, but in a good way. Like they say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person, right?
100%, yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, okay, let's go.
And you're definitely a busy person, right?
Yeah. And I've had to learn to sort of like balance that with, self-care practices for sure. But
100%. You got to take care of yourself. That's the only way you're going to be able to be busy, right?
Yeah, because otherwise,
what are you doing? Yeah, no, go ahead. Good. Continue.
I was thinking, otherwise, where are you giving from? Like a place of like lack and needing to catch up, or a place of being like, this is awesome and being full, and then like wanting to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember it was like an old saying, a proverb. It's like, the way that you're supposed to give is like, picture yourself as a vessel of glass, and the water is filled into you. And when it pours out, that's how you truly give. Like you can't give from an empty glass, right? Like it's gotta be overflowing, and that's how you're able to really give.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which comes to self-care, right? You got to take care of yourself first.
Yeah, and I think I would imagine that everyone experiences a bit of that pressure to give, even when they're not full. Just because of let's face it, the society we live in, and it's kind of like, you should this, you should that, right? You always should be doing something or like doing more, and we do learn that along the way. So I feel like hopefully some of the process of like growing up is getting access to these like tools that teach us like, no, actually that was kind of harmful that we were taught that. We need to unwind that a little bit, and like, we could still, I think I have more energy now that I've like unwound a lot of those like kind of stories that were making me put pressure on myself, because I feel like there's kind of mental energy leaks there that are not necessary. It's like, let me just put all my energy into love and not be like fear-based like actions, like doing things, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I love that too. That's a really good statement. Like, let me put my energy into love instead of being fear-based. That's beautiful. I like that.
Easier said than done. I admit.
Right? Yeah, it's easier said than done. But it's good to remind yourself, right? This is what we should be doing.
Yeah, like
everything should definitely.
Yeah, so like aim for the moon, and then even if you only get halfway there, like, hey,
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Well, let me introduce. I'm sure a lot of my audience probably already knows who you are, but let me just do a little brief synopsis.
Yeah.
To my audience, I met Rhiannon years ago. I was promoting a club. Well, I was managing and promoting both. And I don't even remember exactly how I came across you as an entertainer, but there was, you know what? That's right. It was Dove. I had a guy that used to book people for me. That's right. And Rhiannon was one of the people he was booking. I think she parted ways with them, but she was nice enough to say, you know what? The place looks awesome. I'd like to come out and do it. And I had a whole bunch of celebrity DJs and performers and music artists on the regular. That's something we did. It was like a live music venue. And I'll never forget, like you were like, and I've seen a lot of entertainers over the years, and I had from comedians who were always, you see them as very lively, entertaining, and energetic people. And I'll never forget your energy. Like, that's what they say about people, is like, you may forget what they say or what they did, but they never forget how they made you feel.
Yeah.
And I feel like not only me, but personally, but the whole crowd. Like, the whole crowd was so, like, you had an amazing performance, and everyone, that the energy was up, and I think that's probably evident because you performed in a whole lot of places, and I think that's probably a big reason why. So
Yeah.
that's how I was introduced to Rhiannon. And I think we did a couple shows, maybe one or so after that. And I just kind of like just been following you ever since, and I've been admiring you from afar and seeing the stuff that you've done. Making some hits that hitting the charts, getting awards like all over the place. I mean, you've got all kinds of different awards from different places, and definitely you hit the club scene for a long time. And then I saw you branch out into an artist. You went from DJ Rhiannon to Rhiannon Roze. Now I'm the artist, and you've put out some really good music there.
Thanks.
So that kind of leads to now, and that there's a whole lot in there. I'm hoping you're going to catch me up on. I want to like to have a conversation about maybe even before that, like what led you to be that performer, that artist, like what brought you to that path, and then from there, what got you from the different steps that you've taken, and then maybe talk about maybe what are your plans, like what you're going to go, just to give us a little bit of a quick little synopsis. But first, catch me up. What have you been up to?
Yeah, I guess I did the rebrand in 2018, which I mean, even now, today, like, I'm like, should I have done that? Like, 'cause it's kind of like, I don't know. I mean, everyone has their own journey with everything. And like, I'm really happy with Rhiannon Roze. If there was a part of me that after I did it, I felt almost like, did I abandon DJ Rhiannon? And like, I was kind of like, can people find me? Like, it's a whole thing, like rebranding. That's like a whole topic, like, in itself. I don't know. I mean, I went for it. I don't have any regrets. I really like that it's, a neutral name that doesn't have the DJ there, because I'm like, well, I'm doing all this voiceover and like lyrics and writing, and I feel like it made sense to have like a neutral name. So that was a big thing. And I guess and it kind of inspired me to really then like start releasing a lot of like new stuff. And I hadn't really had time to create, like, while I was DJ Rhiannon running around and flying everywhere, and like so I was kind of grateful that things where I was like, okay, carving out more time, got to spend time with Ableton, my bae, and so it's just been, I guess it's been like creative mode this last since 2016 or 17. I dove into Ableton in like the end of 2016. I purchased it in 2010, and then I tried to like figure it out myself, and I just got frustrated, and I was like, this sucks. Like,
complicated, right? Yeah, it's complicated.
But it's like, well, of course you're not going to learn how to do it yourself. Yeah. Like, you've got to get help. But I was so overwhelmed. I just had so many things going on. So actually going to like a school to learn, I took an introduction to Ableton course, and then I saw the light. I was like, oh, okay. And I knew what had happened in 2010. It's like I tried to make a mashup, but I didn't know about warping. Like, you're not born knowing about warping. Like, you have to learn this stuff somewhere. So I was just like, everyone started somewhere. And that was probably the best advice I'd got from my mentor, Brian Matrix, at Matrix Sessions. He's like, everyone's number gets called up at some point. Like I don't know if it's like for like the limelight or just, he's like, just be patient and just keep doing your thing. And the only thing separating you from, name any massive, like, artist or DJ or producer, or anyone that you look up to, the only thing separating you from them is time. Yeah. And I'm like, whoa. And I mean, of course there's things like, like the talent, the creativity, everyone's individual. But the point is that I can have the same skills that Deadmau5 has if I want to put time into it. Right? Exactly. That's all it takes. It's just a question of, do you want to do all that? Because it's like, I mean, he's a mastermind. Geez. But like, if you put the time in and this is your thing, you can do it.
Yeah, of course, right? Yeah. And there's a little bit, I think, greater learning curve to the music production, and not to say that DJing's easy, but it's definitely. I think the software is a little bit friendlier, a little bit easier to work with, especially now, like with the electronic DJing becoming big. Not everyone can be great. There's definitely a skill and an art to it.
Sure.
But I think there's less learning curve. Like it takes you a little bit less time to at least get proficient in those skills and then to master them. Whereas music production, wow, like there's so much, right? It's
Yeah.
just, there's so much to learn, you know. It's like learning an instrument. Like you've got to get time with it and be proficient with it.
Yeah, there's so many rabbit holes with music production. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It can be really intimidating. And I mean, yeah, if there's any, producers listening, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And, or if they're people that are kind of beginning on this journey, gosh, I mean, there's so much to say, but I would just say if you love this, then just stick with it. And, I found myself like there was a moment in that journey of learning how to produce music where I was like, I felt myself avoiding it, and I was like, why am I not wanting to sit down in my chair right now? And I actually was honest with my mentor, and I'm like, hey, like, I found myself kind of avoiding, which is so weird because I was so excited and was like spending all this time. And he's like, he's like, no worries, G. He calls everyone G. He's like, no worries, G. He's like, that's a good sign. He's like, that means that you've kind of like. You've got to a place where you've sort of like peeked through this little opening and you've seen like how much is there and you're like, oh, that's a lot kind of thing. And that it's a common sort of roadblock or obstacle or something. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know that, and he's like, it's a good thing. And sure enough, I got past it by making my goal smaller. And I'm putting this out there because this helped me so much. So I'm like, if anyone's listening and they want to apply this to literally anything they're doing, it was this guy that wrote this book of the psychology, something like the psychology of developing a new habit. And he explained that like when we do something new, like when we brush our teeth, that's like automatic, right? That's like, okay, if you want to get really geeky, it's like the neuroplasticity in the brain, those pathways are there. It's so easy. We could do it, half asleep, right? When we do. But like when we're like embarking on something brand new, there's a part of our like energy that's like, oh, this is going to take all kinds of energy. Like we need to conserve, like let's, and it's kind of like almost like avoiding, there's like an avoidance or a hesitation. Whereas, and so that, this guy recommended, he's like, make your goal really small. Like if you want to do something like learn how to play guitar or like study like the stock market or produce music, whatever, make your goal like 20 minutes a day. And I was kind of like, 20 minutes, that's it. But he's like, trust me, like he's like, I've studied this, so 20 minutes, you make that your goal, and then it's so accomplishable, if that's a word, and that you do it, and then you can go beyond that, of course, if you want to, but you would have to do at least 20 minutes. I have to spend at least 20 minutes with Ableton a day. And it really helped because then you felt like you'd accomplished something, and then you didn't have that sort of pressure of like, you need to spend 5 hours a day producing music, it's too much pressure.
That's really good advice. I mean, it's like, and you said something, it's like you feel accomplished. And I think that's important, especially for someone that's operates at a high level anyway. Like you were really good at DJing and other stuff. And here you go into this something, I want to do this and it's related and I think I'm going to be really good at it, but then you get into it and you probably get overwhelmed. So a way to overcome the overwhelm is to give yourself little daily baby steps. I'm going to meet this goal. And that 20 minutes is an easy one, right? I'm sure you probably didn't take long that turned into, 2 hours or 3 hours, right? But you accomplished that 20 minutes. At least you got that. And then each day gets easier and easier and easier by taking those small, little, focused, concentrated steps. Yeah. So that's, especially with something as daunting as music production. I mean, that's like, there's a small part of the population that I think makes it past that. I've explored it and I'm saying, just like you, I'm like, you know what? I really, maybe one day, but this is pretty daunting. It's a little more than I think I'm ready for. And you get that overwhelm, right? Yeah. So you made that. It's a good thing you had a mentor to coach you through that. Was that pretty pivotal? Did he help a lot by telling you that?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure it was him that told me about that particular author. And I feel bad that I can't remember the name of, it's a book, like The Psychology of Developing a New Habit. But I think that maybe they offer, maybe there's like a Cole's Notes or something like that you can Google, and that's why I didn't buy the book. But just that little piece helped me so much. Yeah. I was like, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so now, like, you told me yesterday you were doing some sort of production. You tell me about that? Like, what is that? Is that something you can talk about or no?
Oh, I actually, I can't yet. Just because, because the idea hasn't come out yet.
Gotcha.
Technically, it might by the time this is out, but whatever. whatever.
Well, tell me what you are doing right now at the present. Like, what's your main focus? Like, what is most of your energy going towards right now?
Great question. I feel like it's a balance of voiceover and writing lyrics, recording vocals, and music production. Oh, and I'm a breathwork facilitator, so I do run like a weekly breathwork session via Zoom. So I'm kind of like,
Awesome.
I'm mainly
Wow.
focused on these 100 things.
These things, which is fine. That's good. That's good that you can do that. No, I actually had. That's that's just perfectly. It's 100% legit thing to do. And just to go back, like you were questioning, you said you didn't regret it for sure, but you were questioning, did I make the right decision by rebranding myself? And I say that statement right there is like, absolutely, yes, you did.
Oh, cool.
Because you were in a box before, right?
Yeah,
you're DJ Rhiannon, and not that you can't do other things, but you were doing so much. I think you were doing a lot of things that maybe, like your focus may have been DJing, but you're like, I had this interest and this interest and this interest. And so it only makes sense that you want to kind of like, Rhiannon Roze you're an open book now, right? There is no box now. Like the sky's the limit. You can do what you want.
Yeah.
Not that you're abandoning DJing, 'cause I'm sure that's never going to go anywhere. It's always going to be a part of who you are. But yeah, expands your horizons a little bit. Tell me about the breath work. What is that about?
Oh, wow. So I guess my journey with that probably started in 2010, like the roots of it, like going to like a yoga class, basically. Yeah. I tried going to a yoga class when I was in Vancouver, Canada, and I was so intimidated. Like, it was just like, it was very aerobic and kind of like,
yes,
everyone knew what they were doing and I didn't. I just felt lost. And I was like, what are we doing now? Like,
I get that.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going back to the soccer pitch. Thank you. Like, tried that. No, not for me, And I just, I was like, I loved soccer, like played my whole life. And so I was like, no, I'm cool with that. But when I moved to LA, I left my team behind and I didn't find a new team here because I was then focused like full on like DJing career, like let's go, I had to get a work visa, like the whole jam, right? Because I'm Canadian. And I guess, and that was around 2010. So I happened to go to a yoga class that I resonated with, and that was a big thing. It's just, sometimes it's just the class you happen to go to or the teacher. And and so from there, I just kind of kept poking around like these different classes and things, and I discovered breath work in I guess 2015 at this festival that I went to, and similarly was like, whoa, like what is this? Because I've meditated, but this is like a whole other experience in a very short amount of time, like to go that deep or have like that much shift, it was like, wow. So I started studying with the teacher, who's Michael Brian Baker of the Breath Center. That's the school, basically. Mm-hmm. And I became certified to facilitate sessions. And the part of the final exam was this. It was a big exam, but I made it even bigger because I don't half-ass anything, and I dove into this exam like a complete nerd. Like, I just loved it. I was like, I haven't had a proper exam since my university days. So I was just like loving all the studying, and I ended up submitting like a 125-page paper. And he was like, okay. He's like, wow. Do you want to teach this too? And I'm like, yeah. Like, I love this stuff. Nice. So I'm technically certified to facilitate and teach, which is really exciting, and a total side thing. But essentially it's just a guided meditation, but it incorporates active breath. So there's specific techniques that, do different things, and, we learn all about, the different hemispheres of the brain and cerebral spinal fluid and stimulating that and what happens, and, the energy moves and releases things. I mean, it's a fascinating science. And I'm kind of like, why don't more people know about this? And that's why it piqued my interest, just that, or maybe people know about it, but they don't maybe know the history of it or where it came from, or they've read this terrible definition of breathwork on Wikipedia. And I know people listening are maybe, are going to go to Wikipedia. If you type breathwork into Wikipedia, it's pitiful. The description, it's scary. And so I was like, what? This is so amazing. but technically it comes from yoga, and the real name is pranayama, right? That's like pranayama
That's the
comes
breath.
from
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So prana is like the word prana is from Sanskrit, so it's like like energy, just all the energy around us, universal life force energy, right? And then ayama is to expand, kind of thing. So just expanding that. So it's not actually breath work, you know what I mean? But in the West, that's how we've kind of been exposed to it, because people, it was rebranded so that we could hear breath work. Oh, okay, that's cool. Whereas like a lot of people hear the word pranayama and they're like, oh, like what is that? Some religion? They run away. It's like, no, it's human science. Like it's good for you.
It's amazing. Like I do yoga occasionally. I kept trying to do a little bit more. My dad has been doing yoga probably for about 3 years now, and he has an instructor. She's amazing. And the breath work always scared me. And I told her that. I said, look, I've tried yoga before. I've tried it before. And I start freaking out because now I'm like, am I breathing right? And I was like, you breathe all the time without a problem. But I started focusing on it. I'm like, am I doing this right? It's like, yeah, breathing right? Am I doing this right? And so I'd always get like anxiety and worked up. And I was like, all right, that's not for me. And I'd say no. I stuck with her a little bit longer because she was able to get me past that. And it helped a lot. And then I took that into the next stage of meditation. And it was amazing just on that. I mean, literally, I've never been on that level of meditation than when I incorporated the breath in the right way.
Cool.
And it was guided because I wasn't able to do it on my own. So it was guided. It's like, they tell you all right, now hold it, the durations, right? Breathe in, breathe out. And I do something called priming most mornings. I should do it every morning, but most mornings. And it's literally, you actually move you're expanding your chest. So you move your arms up and down, and it's a concentration of breath. And you do that right before you start meditating. Nice. And it's like, I can't tell you how fast it just gets you there. It's crazy. I mean, I probably don't have to tell you because this is what you're doing, but yeah, it blows your mind, right? How important your breath is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, if you think of it as like, wow, okay, so the breath is the first thing we do when we're born, and like kind of the last thing we do before we die, which is kind of like, it's like, whoa, but it's true. I mean, it's sort of like the first and last thing, and it holds that much power. I mean, it's like we could go days without, food and maybe even water. I think people have. So I'm like, yes. But like the breath? No, like, you're cooked after like,
Exactly.
depending on your lung capacity, well, as we know, can't live without breath. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's powerful. And, we do it automatically. And for a lot of us, we're not utilizing sort of the full potential of it if we're not using it consciously. Not that we would go around consciously, activating our breath all day or anything, but just doing some of those practices can help. Just to have like a concentrated sort of like time, whether it's like every day or once a week or whatever it is, like a class, like the thing I guide is just once a week, and then people that come back continuously are like, wow, like, I see the effects right away, but I also see the long-term effects of like being committed and showing up each week. And it's just so interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And I've had a number of different experiences in my life to where breath came. It was definitely a huge factor. Like, I was in the choir growing up as a kid.
Cool.
So you have to learn how to breathe in the diaphragm, and you use all of your breath instead of just shallow in just your lungs or just the top part of your lungs, which most people don't realize. Played sports and soccer, especially, that you definitely have to, you have long durations. You need that oxygen. So you got to train your body how to do it. Swimming, you have people that do deep sea diving. I mean, they can hold their breath for like 5-8 minutes, which is crazy, and it's crazy to think about. But it's all how you can train your breath. The Wim Hof method. This Wim Hof goes in icy cold water, and he'll stay on there for like 10 minutes at a time. It's crazy. But the part that I found, and in that part you can have a direct proof. There's like, okay, see, breath matters. You can prove it. But the part that I found pretty profound is like when the mental side of it. It's like it literally like. And I don't even know why. Maybe you do, but you tap into something. Mm-hmm. Like when you get that breath work right, you actually tap into something like on a spiritual level. Like it's like your meditation goes deeper. Like whatever you're doing on a spiritual level, I think just gets enhanced, just like it does physically.
Yeah.
So Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's like we have these various experiences, like as human beings. Like there's the physical self. If we stub our toe, like all our attention is like, my toe, like that's where all
Yeah.
our attention is. Whereas like, or if something, bad happens and we're having this thought, or like maybe something's coming up and we're having like these thoughts of fear around it, it's like we're very much then in our head. Or if something really sad happens, then we're just like fully in our emotions, Or if we like have this amazing connection to something, we might have a spiritual experience. So it's like
Yes.
these different experiences of being human, they're all part of who we are. And we might be sort of more focused on one or the other, in a certain moment. And during these, breathwork sessions, it's so interesting that like people will come back to me and be like, oh yeah, I had this, like sensation in my ankle, and it had been, I wasn't really feeling my toes, and they were tingling, and then I could suddenly feel my toes again, and like, so very physical.
Wow.
And then someone else will come and say like, yeah, that they're like, oh, my mind's been going all week, and after the session, I was like, first time I felt settled in so long, so that was more of a mind thing. Other person was like, oh, I just cried and cried and cried, and it just felt so
Wow.
good, and but the emotional
That's
release.
awesome.
And then someone else is like, oh, I had a vision of my friend who passed away, and it's just, you know what I mean? It's just like,
Wow.
how
Yeah.
diverse, It's like
Wow.
this incredible adaptogen of like whoever shows up and whatever they're bringing to the experience. If it's guided in such a way that it's sort of open to whatever
Yeah.
your experience is, it's like, wow, it's pretty profound.
So, I mean, why do you think that is? I mean, is it a combination? I mean, here's kind of my understanding of it and my thinking. And you expand on it, please. But when you breathe, you have the certain aspect of it is I think it forces meditation because our minds are so busy, and you're disconnected from not only your breath but your body.
Mm-hmm.
So by focusing on this, that life-giving force, the air, I mean that's life-giving. By focusing on that, does it help you connect with the rest of your body and then your mind and your thoughts? I mean, what's is it? I'm sure there's science involved, and there's also something going on up here. I don't really fully understand it. Is there something you can help me understand that better? Or I mean, what is it?
Sure.
What causes that? Like, what is that?
Right. I know. And this is exactly why I was so intrigued and why I dove into studying and took this program, like with the breast center, because I was like, I really want to know more about this. Like, why is this so different? I was in the same session as a person next to me. How come their experience was so different?
Yeah.
So it really does tap into, who you are as an individual and what's going on for you. And where I think it really comes, like the most significant factor, way that I can answer your question is really that everyone's energy is unique in that, because essentially, so breathwork comes from pranayama, right? And we said prana is universal life force energy. It's just all of that which is around us, and we, by consciously taking in prana through oxygen, because we breathe in the oxygen, so we're also breathing in that energy that's in the oxygen, by doing it consciously, we are, in a sense, building up that energy, like inside us. At least the technique that I guide, by we're pulling, like you said, breath into our like body, not just our brain. So some pranayama techniques, you're breathing through your nose, alternate nostril breathing,
Yeah.
and you actually purposely want to, stimulate the left and right hemispheres.
Yeah.
And that's that's amazing for its own purpose, and the
Yeah.
one that I do where we actually breathe through the mouth. So we're breathing into the body to, like you said, to like reconnect with what's below here, because we're just kind of
Yeah.
living our lives from
Yeah.
here up,
Yeah.
And so when that energy starts, moving in the body, and particularly if we want to get real like Western sciencey about it, it's that when we're breathing down into our bellies, we're stimulating cerebral spinal fluid, which is at the base of the spine. And that's kind of the key to a lot of these things. But also that we have this meridian system, which is, it's the same system that like acupuncturists use. So if you've had acupuncture, it's like, they think of it as acupuncture points, whereas like yogis would call it the nadis. So it's like a system
Yeah.
of 72,000 nadis apparently, and but the three most significant ones are Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna. And Sushumna is like basically like the energy pathway that runs along our spine. So,
Yes.
connects, it's like all the way up. And of course, yeah, then we have the energy centers and all the things. Why I think it's like unique for everyone and why it works is that we're kind of like lighting ourselves up in a way. It's like we're batteries. As humans, we're batteries. We have the positive charge and the negative charge. So, and when we're balanced and we come together and kind of, ignite all this, then anything that's sort of not serving us anymore, or you know what I mean, anything that's stuck, like particularly when energy starts moving through that meridian system, a lot of stuff that's been like stagnant or stuck, old memories or injuries or like, things, they get stored there because you feel it. When something happens, you feel it, right? And unless you kind of know how to consciously release whatever that was, that experience, that it sometimes gets stored places. And we know this because we're reactive. Like as humans, we're like, ah, and then someone else like, whoa, like what? Whoa, like where did that come from? Because it's like, well, they've had an experience and there's a story there and there's something they've learned and maybe there's something that could be kind of, like released, but it's just maybe stuck there energetically or emotionally or mentally or physically, right? So it's like, that's where all these different mediums of experiencing and releasing things comes into play, because it just depends where it's stored, what needs to move out.
That's awesome. That's a really good explanation. I like that. That's really cool. Yeah, it's like I love the different like you have the Western way, the Eastern way, and there are different Eastern ways of just kind of analyzing what, and there's different words for it. Like it's energy, it's chi, it's electrical energy, it's whatever it is. But it's like I think it's mentioned throughout history, multiple times. And I think it's something you can't deny. Yeah. Like, it's like you can, even at this point, I think we've scientifically kind of proven it. It's really, it's profound to me that we don't kind of focus on it a little bit more. Not there are people that do. Like I think the breath work is definitely a way to do that. The acupuncture or just yoga in particular, or just moving, right? Just the act of moving, getting your movement there and concentrating on the breath and the energy. It's just, I find it really interesting. I'm always finding myself wanting to kind of like dive deeper into it and get a better understanding.
Yeah. So but even, and even if someone, didn't even care about all the, the why, there's like, I don't know, I don't care why, but I know that I love breath work or pranayama or even just going, dancing. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge way to release energy. I mean, it's no surprise that people, go out on the weekend and dance and like let loose, because they're literally letting loose. They're letting all the stuff go that they've kind of collected throughout the week. Yeah.
Exactly. No, and it goes back to like, there's like primal movements that our ancestors have been doing forever. That's like, you get on the dance floor, you almost kind of, it's like you don't feel silly like trying to get into that primal movement again.
Yeah,
totally. That's just the art of like kind of like letting it come out, and it's, I don't know, it feels good. And like I think some of us don't. I don't know why, but I love going to the club, or I love going to the rave, or whatever it is. Even raves especially, because I think the more it's accepted to be a little bit more primal with your movements, and you don't have to be so mechanical or this, and it's
true.
It gives you a connection, right? And it kind of feels like kids play. They're not concerned with what they look like or what they're doing.
Not at all.
But the act of doing it is just fun, and it's just like this release, and it feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to go backwards now and ask you a little bit about, I'm just curious, like what made Rhiannon kind of go the path that you went? Like, what was it? Have you always been like a performer? Have you always been wanting to be in the spotlight? What made you choose your path? I mean, was it evident were you in all the school plays and just tell me your path. I'm curious. I'm just curious what led you there.
Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, I think I was in some school plays and things. I know that the one story that sticks out that my mom has told me is that when I was a kid, I don't know how old, but I guess we were visiting family in England. That's where my parents are from. And she said that I would, whenever we went to some kind of playground, she's like, you'd find the highest point, and you'd climb to the top of it. And she said, and then she's like, and then you'd sort of get everyone's attention, but she's like, you didn't really have anything in particular to say. So she said that I would be like, ladies and gentlemen, introducing my sister. And then my sister would be like,
That's great.
I was gonna, really, I did that? You know, it was, like you said, when you're a kid, you just do what feels good, and you don't care what anyone thinks. So I think the spirit of like entertaining people was definitely there.
Awesome. Why DJing? What led you there? Like, what was the path that led you there?
Good question. You know, my older sister became a DJ. Well, so my older sister is a DJ. I was going to say she became a DJ before I did, but you know, I remember that I think it became a DJ without knowing it, because basically I just loved collecting music and sharing it with my friends. So like, I'd collect. Yeah, I'd sort of get, you know, I'd want to put certain favorite tracks of mine in a particular order.
There
you know,
go.
like using cassette tapes.
Yeah, the mixtape.
Dating yourself. But yeah. But I would use the cassette, you know, and you could see the pause play and like, you know. And so I'd put the track, you know, I was like, I want to hear these songs in this order. And then I'd be all excited and like, you know, play it in my car or whatever, like show people, you know. And I didn't think, oh, I'm DJing. It was just like, yeah, I don't know, just, you know, creating a soundscape, putting tracks in a certain order to create an experience, you know, for myself and others. And then it was just a case of the medium changing, you know. My sister bought turntables, and I was like, what are those, you know? And of course can we swear on this thing?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, I was just like, I was like, wait, you better ask permission. I was going to say, she'd be going out, she'd be like, don't touch my shit, you know, so, because I was the, you know, younger sister, annoying little sister, and she'd go out.
Sure
and
enough,
then,
you did, right?
Oh, yeah, straight away. Like, I go down to the basement, touch your shit. But I still, you know, so even though, in a way, I had to teach myself because she wasn't totally available for that at first, I give her so much credit because she did. She was so encouraging, and she's still like my biggest fan. She's awesome.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a kind of a difficult question.
Sure.
I want you to really think about it. Like, I don't want to. Give me a second. Hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know why. Like, I have the SIRI always wants to pay attention sometimes and interact.
Oh.
Siri.
Siri's
Anyway.
like, thank you for asking, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. She just did that. But anyway, I want to know, like, I'm sure you've had your life hasn't been all rainbows. You know, I'm sure there's been some times, there's been some storms, there's been some hard times, some difficulties. Maybe even at a time when you're trying to decide, should I rebrand, or there's another, you know, a path. Okay, which way should I take? I want to know, like, in those times when it's hard and you're struggling, and you're just, what is it that drives you? Like, what's your why? Like, what is it that keeps you going no matter what? Like, when you're, especially if you get knocked down, especially if you've had something, you know, bad happen to you, what gets you back up, and what keeps you moving in the right direction?
It's so interesting because, like, the word that kept popping into my head, and I was like, oh, that's so cliche, but I'm like, okay, fine, I'll say it. Like, but it's love. I mean, and I don't mean romantic love. I mean, like, just like, holy shit, we're alive. Like, this is so cool. Like, what can we do? Like, what's next? And wow, that hurt. Now I feel even more alive. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Just like, I'm kind of in love with the human experience and all the things it has to offer. And I don't know. I mean, I really owe a lot to the yoga practices that I've been doing, as in the asana, which is like the physical practice, and meditation and the pranayama, like the breath work, like all of that, because that really reels me in and brings me back here. Because there's, you know, so many things can happen and have happened and are yet to happen. And like without those practices, oh my gosh, I feel like I'd be a mess. And I mean, I didn't have these tools, growing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of things happened, even, I was 9, my dad left, and like that was confusing. And you know what I mean? Like as a child, you kind of don't get stuff. And
Yeah.
also as a child, you tend to sort of pick up on how people are feeling and sort of take it on, almost to be like, oh yeah, like I can heal this, I can solve this, but like you don't know what you're doing. You're 9, like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have the analytical skills or whatever to like kind of like process and transmute. Like so you're just like, oh, I'll take it on because I don't want these people around me. They seem really sad. I should probably take this on and do something about it.
Yeah.
So like things like that, like I feel like affected my journey. And I mean, I was a really hardworking student, always have been. And people can kind of even analyze that and be like, oh, a lot of times people that didn't get that, love or attention from a parent were always kind of trying to like get their attention through, being like, oh, look at me, like I got straight A's and da da da. And like, that's probably my case. And I'm grateful for it, honestly, because that was just my journey, and I'm so grateful that like, that I got to learn how to write and, read really well. And like, I'm bilingual almost now, like I speak Spanish, and all that came from that drive of being like a kick-ass student. Cause I was like, oh, I want to impress my dad, and, and my mom. But like, so I just feel like everyone's kind of got their own journey with all this stuff. And that, I mean, I experienced love through music and dancing. I think that before I had found yoga as well, kind of thing, that those were it was the times when I was like on a dance floor experiencing a piece of music and suddenly everything else dropped away. Yeah. Like that's that, in meditation I always like, oh, it's present moment and be here now. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, totally I've experienced that before on the dance floor, right?
Yeah,
like,
I can relate.
Yeah, powerful
that's
stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is what inspired me to become a DJ, because after I experienced that, I was like, I really want to offer this experience to others too.
Spread and share that, right? Yeah. That's awesome. I can totally relate to that. I'm a huge music lover myself. I still DJ. Not actually, I do a couple of events a year, but just for fun, just 'cause I love it. I just still love to create and be creative, make art my mixtape.
Yes.
That's really good. I see a lot of high achievers. Like that's usually a common denominator and it doesn't even have to be like a lack of love. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I got to figure out how to have Siri not listen to me again. But yeah, you get this, and sometimes it's just for yourself, but you want someone to be proud of you. Like either yourself or a lot of times it's a parent. Mm-hmm. It might be a sibling, might be a teacher, a coach, whatever. And you don't like it gets like kind of ingrained in you deeply. And so like, and then you use it like just like you, I'm grateful for that because it helps me. It keeps me motivated and pushing on. And when times get hard, you still want to do it. And I love that you said love too, because it's like, and then here's something and you said that your daily practices, like your breath work, your music production, you're just dancing, keeps you centered, keeps you focused, Mm-hmm. And I think that's so important. And it's a factor that I think a lot of people are missing is you have to like wake up and you got to do it with intent, right? You got to be purposeful about it. You have to be grateful. And the fact that you're up and you're breathing and you can see the birds in the trees or hear them or the rain is falling or feel the sun on your skin. There's like so many people that don't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Like maybe they didn't wake up today or maybe they did, but they can't, they don't have the sense of feeling or whatever it is. And I'm constantly grateful for all the gifts that we have. And I think that I think you definitely are, just by what you're saying is you wake up, you're intent about it. All right, I'm going to focus on this because I'm, in love with the human experience, right? How can you be in love with the human experience if you're not grateful for it?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that. There's a lot of people that kind of haven't made that connection. They'll have that small moment, like maybe on the dance floor, or maybe that there was a class that they took, but it's not like it's not a habit. Like it's an occasional thing. Or I took a retreat, or I did this, or I had a really good vacation, or whatever it is, and then they get into the mundane, everyday life habits, and they don't have that as a habit. And I think it's so important. Like what your doing breath work, I think that you're serving people, right? There's people that come to you and they get value out of it. They're crying, they release something, they felt something they hadn't heard before, and that's all about like your daily habits of intent, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's true that whole serving others it's a massive piece, when sometimes when people feel like something's missing or they have questions or they're seeking or they're kind of like maybe they're doing really well, on a material level, but they're kind of like, why am I not super freaking happy every day if I have all these things that I've been grown, it's like, that's what I was told. Like, I have a great job, I have this, I have that. So why am I, because there's
100%.
Another piece like to it. And
there is. No, it's like, I mean, they think that, okay, my meaning is life is just to be successful. And so when they achieve it, and they're like, okay, here's my measure of success. I got the big car, the big house, the whatever it is, that it's skewed a little bit. Like, not saying that's bad, because you can have all that stuff and be happy, but you can have all that, but you're missing your purpose, right? Your meaning, and a lot of that has to do with serving. Because how can really something be meaningful or purposeful if you're the only one that's experiencing it?
Yeah.
Like, if you're not somehow able to share that with someone else, then it kind of doesn't mean a whole lot,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's the experience for sure. And yeah, and some people don't get exposure to sort of like the I don't know if it's like the education or the tools or the people that kind of like offer these ways of kind of coming back. I guess it is, coming back to center, like coming back to the present moment, because in the end that's kind of all we have. And that's what I feel like cultivates that gratitude, is that, and that perspective is just that returning to the present moment and being like, oh yeah, like everything that happened in the past and everything that's going to happen in the future literally does not exist anywhere except in my mind. Exactly. I mean, I know, today's today and tomorrow's going to be tomorrow, but technically all I have is right now, right here, right now, talking to you. Like that's all that's really exists. Everything, you know what I mean? Like,
no, 100%.
It's kind of wild, but to tap into that is powerful.
It's difficult to grasp. I know for me, it took me a while to kind of really get it. And I've always been, I'm more of a worrier. I'm not a depressed person. And they say people that are depressed, it's because they're living in the past. The worriers are living in the future.
Right.
It's like, but you really, like, again, center. Let's be right here and be present. It's like, that's the gift right there, is when you truly can be present. It's such a gift, because like you said, the past is not there anymore and the future is not here yet. So neither one of them really exist.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, whatever you're going to do, you can't do in the past, not unless you have a time machine, which I haven't seen one yet. And you literally can't jump forward to the future. All you can do is what you have, like right now at this present moment.
Yeah.
And it's funny that it's hard to grasp that, right? It seems so simple. It seems so simple. Yeah. Yet we all struggle with it. We all struggle with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the nature of, the mind. And it's a beautiful tool. I mean, it's, because when we equate the mind with the ego, oftentimes it seems like we're villainizing the mind or something. That's like, no, like, I love my mind. My mind's this amazing tool. Like, I was able to learn another language with it and communicate with people and like produce music. Like, so it's not, ego, mind, bad. Like, but it's just like, hey, if this mind is capable of so much, mastery and like, intelligence, then chances are we need to kind of like help keep it focused a little bit. Otherwise it might run rampant and be like, on overdrive and like, oh, what about this, and this? Oh, and this might happen, that might happen, that might happen, that might happen. Oh, what about this? Remember when this happened? It's just like, like, like our minds are so brilliant that they can handle all those thoughts. So like, if we don't kind of like have some kind of practice where we can be like, okay, mind, like, we're going to focus now. Because otherwise you're going along with it and your whole body kind of like, just like, it's like, it's like, no, I don't, and then you get into the whole, we spend so much of our days in the sympathetic nervous system, right? The fight or flight, because we're in these constant thoughts of like, past, depressed about the past, like worried about the future. And then our body doesn't get that break. And as humans, like when we're balanced, we're in that central nervous system and we're ready to either be in, sympathetic, if like a car suddenly turns around the corner and you're in the middle of the street, we need that sympathetic to turn on, right? But then when it's time to rest and digest, we need to be in the parasympathetic to do that. And so often when people have sleeping issues or, digestive issues, it's because they're always in that sympathetic nervous system place of fight or flight. So there's no time to rest or digest, because there's shit going on. You know what I mean? So and even if there is a lot going on, it even more the reason to, take that 10 minutes to do that guided meditation or whatever it is that's your thing that helps you relax and feel good, even if it's go surfing or play an instrument or like take a bubble bath, it's just
but do whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's what's funny too is because the environment, realistically we don't have any control over it. You might have small pieces of control of your environment, but you do have control of this and how you perceive it and how you react to it.
Yeah.
And so it almost makes sense that you better focus there because you're going to be doing a million things if you're trying to focus on there 100% of the time.
Yeah.
If you can control here, like Nelson Mandela, in a prison in really bad conditions, and it had so many beautiful thoughts that came out of that, and he was able to control it in his head. Which tells you if he can do that in a prison, locked up for what was 20 something years, I forget what it was, but a long time, locked up in a prison, I should be able to do it. I should be able to do that, right?
Yeah. There's so much freedom in that, just like you said, whatever happens, on the outside is sort of like having that foundation of I don't know, just groundedness or like centeredness on the inside, so that things can kind of tug you left and right, but you're not sort of and then falling over. You know what I mean? It's like 'cause you've cultivated that space of just that connection with yourself. It's just
Get centered again. Yeah.
Self-awareness. It's just there's no bad things that could come out of self-awareness. It's a good practice.
100%. So what? Okay, you were telling me you didn't have these tools, obviously, as a 9-year-old, which I don't. There might be a couple 9-year-olds out there, but not very many.
I bet there are now. Yeah,
there probably are now, right? Which that's actually that. You're right. You're right. That's a pretty cool thought. Let's just talk about someone that maybe is, and it doesn't have to be 9. It could be 13, could be 16, could be 20, but basically on the verge of, look, I think I've made my decision, and what. Maybe I want to be a DJ, a music producer, an artist, a ballerina, a doctor, a veterinarian, whatever it is. What advice could you give to someone that's kind of just beginning in whatever that adventure is, whatever that journey is, to help them a little bit on that road to success? Maybe to deal with some of those, adversarial things that are going to come up. Loss of a loved one. Whatever it is, something physical, something, truly detrimental emotionally, maybe a career move that didn't go their way. Is there something you could tell to someone, especially in your position, someone that's in your position where you were, is there something you could tell them that would save them 5, 10, 20 years of grief, or even a year? Even a year would be valuable, right? You could save them just 1 year of whatever it is you went through to experience in that. What advice would you give them? What could you tell somebody?
Yeah, I feel like what comes through is saying, especially you initially said, if someone's sort of embarking on something new, there's a tendency to sort of want to be 10 steps ahead and feeling bad that you're not, in a way. And that's just a shame spiral. You know what I mean? Again, of putting pressure on yourself and comparing yourself to other people or where people are already at is that's a huge thing for artists, I think, is comparing themselves to others. And I guess the main, thing is to understand that every single, not just every artist's journey, but literally every single human being's journey is unique and it's their own, and they have their own timing. So if things don't seem to be aligning for you right now, to just be patient and focus on what you love. If you love doing something, do it because you love doing it, not because of, you know what I mean? Like, I
No,
guess
100%.
yeah, like just kind of connecting with like yourself and what you really want, and maybe even asking those questions to make sure you're not doing something because someone else wants it, or that, you know what I mean? That could be tough. But you know, I also would say that there's no such thing as a bad decision, which kind of seems like what, but I
No, very
really,
true.
I just feel strongly that everyone's got their own journey, and that, you know, any kind of challenging things or mistakes that I made led me to who I am right now. So how could I have any
Exactly.
regrets
Yeah.
over that? You know, it's like
Yeah.
I had to learn that lesson, you know?
Yeah, I don't have any regrets. I mean, there's a lot of things that I look back on. And yeah, you wish they would have gone differently a certain way. But yeah, when you're here now, and you're like, man, I'm so glad that happened. You know, because
Yeah.
I wouldn't have had this knowledge. You know, because I think, you know, getting knocked down is a great empowerer, a great motivator. And then how much more intense could you have a lesson than getting knocked on your ass, right? You know, so like it resonates deep. That lesson sticks with you, you know, when you get knocked down really hard. You're like, okay, let me not do that one again, you know, and it sticks with you, and you learn how, it's a lesson, right? You learn how, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to not have that happen again.
Yeah.
And you move on, you know, and yeah, I've had a ton of mistakes that turned into beautiful things and opportunities.
Yeah, and we see that with children. Like, you can tell a child not to do something like a million times over, but until they actually experience, well, not just children, like adults, like, you know, people, oh, you know, don't do this or don't do that, you know, but until you actually like, you know, or, you know, until you touch the hot stove and you're like, ah, like, you know, then you
don't forget that
get
one. Yeah. Yeah. Mom can tell you, don't touch a hot stove. Don't have to, you do it yourself. Yeah. You're not touching it again. You're like, yep, I'm not going to do that one again.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate all the time, Rhiannon. It's been really good to
course.
catch up. And I want, what's your main focus right now? What do you where can people find out about Rhiannon and what she's up to next? Where's the best place to go?
I guess, I mean, you know, I'm active on my socials. Instagram is my favorite.
Okay.
You know, as long as you can spell my name, you could find me on there.
Yeah.
And, you know, otherwise my website, you know, actually I linked out, so my rhiannonroze.com, I linked that out to, or under like the drop down menu more, I actually put a link to breathwork, which I've never done before, because I was kind of keeping the
beautiful.
world separate.
Yeah.
But I was just like, you know what? I mean, there's been people in our industry that have, you know, like
100%.
committed suicide, or they're depressed, or like a
Yeah.
lot of artists are. And I'm like, you know, I'm not going to hide this anymore. Like,
That's awesome.
not that I was, I just think I was kind of feeling it out, and I've got more confidence around sharing it now. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to kind of put it there so people
Beautiful.
can find my, because I have a whole other website for the breathwork stuff. So yeah, so if someone's
That's
interested,
awesome.
they can find it.
No, I totally get that. Like I have my main page, and then I ended up slowly putting on some of my other ventures that I do on there as well. Yeah, and one of them is you know, based around yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always try to keep them separate too. And I have a marketing business, and I have now a CBD business, and I decided, you know what, it's all going on the main page, because I'm not going to hide who I am. Who knows, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's time. Yeah, exactly. It's time for us to, like, just integrate all of our. This
Yes.
is being human. Like I used to
Yeah.
maybe judge it too. Like, be like, well, this is weird. Like, people are gonna think you're weird. That, like, you know, you like this and that. And it's like, no, I think that maybe it's like, maybe the reason we're a healthy, happy people is because we have that balance of these
Yes.
different worlds. You know, so why not put that out there?
100%. And I think we tend to want to, like, 'cause I know I did it. I had my like professional side, and then I had the entertainment side, and then I had all these different things. That doesn't mean it's not me. Like, I'm multifaceted. I have many interests.
Yeah.
And so, but I always try to categorize them. I was like, well, that audience is only going to want to see that part, which is bullshit, right? Because, like, I mean, who doesn't have multiple hobbies or multiple interests? Everyone does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just some of us just happen to have more, you know.
Yeah.
I think I have quite a few. I think you have quite a few. But it's good. It makes us balanced and well-rounded. I like that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for catching up. I appreciate it very much. I can't wait to see what else you got going.
Thanks.
And take care.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.